The other one was nicer for me, definitely. One thing that I have done over the years, a little bit of Himalayan salt. I think it's an Eastern European thing, particularly I think a Hungarian thing. I put a tiny little bit of salt in the coffee. Maybe it's the whole coffee thing, you know, to heat you up, to cool you down, and then salt dehydration, I don't know, but I like knowing that it's there when I put it in there. And I don't know if you can necessarily taste it, but for me, what it tends to do is, as you could probably imagine, is it smooths out the flavour. Yeah, that's still too, I'd say, oh, it's got it's a berry, isn't it? I'd say it's a bit too fruity. See why that other one was called the knockout blend now. Yeah, red grape and raspberry and cocoa butter. Cocoa butter is a bit of a anomaly compared to the other two. It's like, what's that doing in there? It's sort of going down a different route. But yeah, it's too bright, sharp. I suppose acidic. Then yeah, fruity. I'm just trying to describe what I'm feeling. So I tend to like. I mean, my favourite coffee. I can have it and sort of think, oh, it wasn't as good as I've known it, but every so often, you know, my favourite coffee basically is Jamaica Blue Mountain. And every so often, when I have one of those, it does something I think no other coffee can do. And it's really my favourite. And for a little while, I've got some from Harrods before now. And actually, this reminds me of the Civet Coffee. Which I must have tasted. Oh yeah, I got given. Somebody gave me some beans. For those of you who don't know, civet is like a marsupial. I think it's a bit like a koala or something. Lives in trees. Loves the coffee cherries. What are those? The beans of the coffee plant, whatever it is. The cherries. Anyway, the berries of, not coffee berries, but anyway, it eats those things and basically poos them out, and people collect that, wash it off, and that is the most expensive coffee in the world as far as I am aware. I don't like these top 10 best ever, you know, because it's a bit like most things. If you look at anything with a bit of intelligence, I mean, yes, when it comes to, you know, football, you win or you lose, but there's still more winning than the last bit of winning, or a bigger win, or a more significant win, or a win with better performance, or a win in faster time, as in we were 4-0 up in the first 5 minutes, or, you know, so these sort of absolutes like can't get any better than that. It's a good figure of speech, but anybody who says it as like, you know, like you get these things of like, the internet doesn't want you to know this. It's just like, oh, go away. So the most expensive coffee, and that's it. It's in a package. It's neat and tidy. We don't need to pay any more attention to it. It's done and dusted. It's like, well, I know that there is actually another coffee. No. Let's not do that. It seems that people that hold on to that just cannot deal with. There's two valued logic, yes or no. Everything's a yes or a no. And, you know, some people say there's three valued logic, yes, maybe, and no. Well, what about no, a little bit no, maybe, bit less maybe, moving up towards the yes, but not quite a yes yet, getting into yes territory, a yes, emphatic yes, can't get any better than yes. I mean, there you go, there's a whole bunch of scales, so really it's infinite. That's the thing, just get your head around it. So if this is the most expensive coffee, let's say, except for there's a country where the civets have been reared organically, and so have the coffee beans. The coffee that they're eating, those cherries or whatever it is that they eat, that's organic. So now we've got organic civet coffee. Oh, why didn't you say that? Well, that's then the most expensive. But Peruvian civets or, you know, Mozambique civets. Well, what's the difference? Well, the Peruvian ones, they feed higher up the mountainside, so the soil is richer and, you know, well then that civet coffee. Yeah, but there is an animal, it's not a civet. Oh my God. Or, you know, so anyway, you go into Harrods and you try and spend more money on coffee than anybody else per gram, you'd have to look at the civet one and then hope that no one else bought any that day. Otherwise you'd be spending the same per gram unless they had a price reduction. And who knows, you might have got 250.03 grams and the last guy got 249.8. Anyway, but loosely speaking, and allegedly, civet coffee is the most expensive, and I can't remember the cost, but I do remember being given a very small handful of beans. I think the Jamaica Blue Mountain, I think in Harrods is like 20 or 25 pound. I can't remember if that's for 100 or 250. You used to sometimes be able to get it from some of the, what they used to call the black apron stores in Starbucks. They're like the barista. Yeah, it's too bright. It's what, hence the civet thing. I did taste some civet coffee, and that was, and it's probably fairly strong. It apparently has a high calorific value or whatever, but it was very bright, very fruity. I don't really like fruity coffee. It's not really my thing. I like dark, chocolatey coffee, you know, and smooth, not sharp. But anyway, so yeah, the Jamaica Blue Mountain was about 20. It's 20 or 25 pound. I can't remember if that's for 100 or 250 grams. I actually cannot remember. It might be for 100. It was £12.50 for possibly 250 grams. And the few times back in the day, 6, 7, 8 years ago, where I saw it in Starbucks. The particular one was not Conduit Street. It's a tiny little sliver of a street in between, those of you who know London, Regent Street, going up towards the Apple Store on the left, but before you get to the Apple Store, I know that's Conduit Street where Sketches, that's a good place. And that's where I get my Jamaica Blue Mountain from. You can't buy the beans, but I get it done in a cafetiere and it's very nice in there. Anyway, but before you come up that far on your left, there's a little slither of a street, which I think now is, maybe always was one way, but anyway, no, it wasn't, never used to be one way, but it is now, and you think, yeah, fair enough, it's pretty narrow. It's between an art gallery and, is it Jeeves and Hawkes? It's basically at the bottom of Savile Row and New Bond Street, where Burlington Arcade is. It might be something to do with Burlington. It might be Burlington Passage or something like that. Anyway, there was a Starbucks there, and I think it was that one, not now, but they used to have the Black Apron in there, and that normally means they do their artisan coffees. And a couple of times I couldn't believe it, you know, because you get this Peruvian this and Colombian that, and I think, yeah, okay, fine, maybe it's nice, maybe it's not. But seeing the Blue Mountain, I'm like, is that a mistake? Do they realise how much value that coffee at that price is to me? Anyway, they must have done, because I haven't seen it in there for a number of years since. But my point is yeah, it was quite a bit more expensive in Harrods, but it's kind of worth it for me, really. And let's face it, at the end of the day, even if it was like £20 or something for 100 grams, I don't know how many cups 100 grams would be, but it's still cheaper than spending £3 or £4 in the shop for one, and you're getting the exact coffee you want, if that is the exact coffee you want. But the Civet one was, I mean, there were other coffees that were more expensive than Jamaica Blue Mountain, but you don't seem to be able to get that organic, because it is grown at a certain height. It only grows at this certain height on the mountain sides. So you can't just grow it anywhere. So it's quite rare, but it has these, for me, what I describe as what I like in a coffee. It's very smooth, it's dark and sort of rich and strong, but sort of creamy. It's for me, it's absolutely beautiful. It's like the coffee version of a vanilla milkshake, except for its strong coffee. Pick the bones out of that lot. But anyway, the Civet, so there was a few coffees a little bit more expensive, but you know, it's still in that neck of the woods. So maybe, you know, £25 per 100 grams, or maybe even more than that, you know, sort of 30. The Civet one was something, I'm probably going to get this wrong now, but it could have been as much as sort of £650 per 100 grams or something. I don't know if it was as much as, I know that it was exponentially more, let's put it that way, than anything. And, you know, it was like, you know, Sunday League football on a Saturday, but not a pub side, you know, scraping the bottom of the FA ladder, like 12th tier football, and you think, no, it's a decent standard, you know. When you played football, yeah, did you get your expenses paid? Yeah. And were there advertising boardings around the pitch? Yeah. That's a decent standard of football. That's the way I look at it. I never did quite manage to play for Northwood on the Northwood pitch. That would have been wonderful to be on a pitch and to look and see that apparently Dave's scaffolding services are available for quite free estimates. You know, oh, sorry, was that the ball? But that's magnificent. I know if I'd have done that, I would have taken a moment to just take in the fact that I've got advertising boardings around this pitch that I'm allowed to play on. I haven't hopped the barrier and made myself YouTube famous or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, it's like, for most of us playing football, then there's your mate who's played a few times for, you know, your local team or something like that, and they do have an allocated stadium. The capacity officially is maybe a couple of 100 or something, maybe 24 chairs, and some of those are in the dugout or whatever. But you sort of think, wow, it's amazing. It's like, or they've got floodlights, you know, and they use them, or something along those lines. And I had a basketball player friend, and silly things like they won wasn't the top, it was the National League, I think they won the basketball National League Cup or something like that. Was it the NEC? I think it was the Birmingham NEC. I think it was some other Birmingham. Anyway, it was quite a big venue. Anyway, they won that there, but it was the little details like the fact that they had to make themselves available for random drug testing. And you think, you know, it's sort of got bad sort of connotations, but it's like to me, I'm like, wow, the real thing, you know, that's official. That means like, these are real people, these are real players, you know. And so then so I think in coffee terms, you know, you get that point where most of us will have a coffee. Some of us, you know, you might pay a little bit more for a decent one. You get to this point where you're at this kind of, with the Jamaica Blue Mountain and other ones, which I won't remember the names of, but you get to that point, and I suppose that's like, it's almost like saying, well, now we're into semi-pro, you know. And then Civet is like, it's almost like you've got some top semi-pro stuff, and in football terms, then you've got the pro leagues, and eventually you've got the Premier League. But it's like, here's Jamaica Blue Mountain and some other friends, and some that are maybe a bit more expensive and maybe for good or spurious reasons or whatever. And then there's World Cup final. There's like, is there anything in the gap? Only if you're neurotic, you know. It's like, I've got to have it hand-picked on a Sunday by Miguel when he's, you know, in Costa Rica visiting his ancestors or something along those lines. And I get it personally shipped because I don't like it going in the hold of the aircraft, because I find that the pressure at 30,000, you know, or lack of, or whatever, just kills the flavour or something along those lines. So you've got to pay someone to put it in their bag, and they're only allowed 100 grams before they have to declare it, or, you know, you can put something together for yourself in that gap if you want. But basically, that's what it seemed to me when I looked at the pricing. And I remember first time I remember speaking to someone about it. I did a few years later. I did get given some beans, but as a test. But when I first sort of heard about this, I had a chat with the guy who was serving me in the counter in Harrods, and he said, he was talking about it, and I said, I sort of thought, I've got to see what this tastes like, but I'm not buying any. And I said, how can I taste some? You know, hint, as in, here you go, so I'll mock something up for you, just a little cup, but he'll give you an idea. That's what I was thinking was going to come from him. And he said to me, you would have to go up onto our third floor coffee rooms or something along those lines. He said, in other words, uck off and pay for it. You know what I mean? That was basically what he told me. And it was so beautifully done, actually, because I innuendoed the question and he innuendoed a slap round the head answer. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, all right. Damn, it's worth a try. But the power of the kids, you see. I go back there a few years later with what was at the time probably an 11 and a 10-year-old. And this time, and of course I'm showing them, look at the price of this. And this time, I might have like brought one or two of them out front and centre to see if maybe that could sway the kind of, and it worked. I got a few beans, and I did try them out. Now, the interesting thing, the boy was 10. I have some great memories of that day, actually, and some great pictures. Don't know if I can share them publicly, but just, these kids. Anyway, he'd never had coffee before, and the pair of them were quite challenging. They were, you know, like, likening them to dogs. I mean, that's not going to end well, is it? But, you know, when a big dog's pulling on the lead, you know, you're just like, you're kind of like, I'm more or less getting him down the road, but it does include some stuff which I'm not in total control over. And you have to go. I've driven big 40-foot trucks, and I don't know about now, but back in the day, they would more or less go straight. It was an average. Over a period of a few hundred feet, they were probably going in a more or less straight trajectory. But if you start fighting every time as they sort of snake on down the road, it gets bigger and bigger, and then you're into a whole heap of trouble. So you sort of just have to sort of say, oh, it wants to go there, let it. Oh, let it do that as well. And then you'll be all right. You get paranoid with it, trying to say, das ist not good, or whatever. The 38 ton, you know what I mean? Most of which is trailer. Anyway, so you got to pick your battles, and kids can be like that, especially when they're not your own. And they were like, cut a long story short, the lad ended up chomping on, I think it was even half or one of these Civet coffee beans. His mum was fairly forgiving and understanding after several years, if even at all. Bless him. Anyway, he was pretty convinced his heart had never beat that fast. I don't know for one or two beans, but I mean, wow, yeah. I could talk for hours about those two kids. They're just wonderful, brilliant bundle of the most awkward, but it's more or less like that thing of that dog pulling on a lead. Now, if the lead was an elastic band, that would be a bit of a better analogy. So you get these big dogs who pull on the lead. Now walk them on a stretchy lead. It's not even like, a big thick rope. It's like, walk them on an elastic band, It could snap, but you're certainly not going to be able to, That was probably how I described them. Love them to bits. Anyway, so that was, how about that? 10-year-old boy's first ever cup of coffee, or first ever introduction to coffee, was Civet Coffee, and I'm sure he would still recall that moment. But anyway, there was nothing in that big gap price-wise. There was a massive gap from worthwhilingly expensive coffee, like, I don't know, just, you sort of think, well, BMW, decent coffee, Rolls Royce, all right, that's, not many people get that. And then it's like, somebody comes out with a name of a manufacturer no one's even heard of, and it's because they make 3 a year and they're 2.4 million, and you have to pay up front, and they'll tell you if and when it's going to be done, And anyway, anyway, those analogies could go on forever. But that's Civet Coffee, and it's bright. It's not a coffee that maybe it's quite handy, really, quite useful, that I'm not so smitten with it, because it is rather expensive. Anyway, that's about it, really. Otherwise, I kind of want to carry on and see what happens. I want to carry on talking, but I need to get on. It's, because it will still have a reasonable amount of caffeine in it, I'm sure. It's kind of like decent coffee becomes even more important to me now, because if I'm only going to have one every so often, whatever that so often is, and that's a sliding scale, then obviously finish my sentence for me. You know, I want it to be a good one. And, you know, to me, that's what luxury is. I think it's not, maybe it's always like in the eye of the beholder sort of thing, but to me, I don't like it when it's pretentious, but maybe sometimes when I think it's pretentious, maybe it's not pretentious to someone else. But to me, it's about engaging with the thing. You know, that to me is luxury. It's about engagement. Art has been described as quality of communication, you know, because, and the way I think of that is like quality of communication. So someone could say hello, and that would be communication. Somebody could go hello, and that would be communicating with style, right? That would be the quality of that communication was, well, was it high or not? Again, it's in the eye of the beholder, I suppose, or the ear of the hearer. But actually, you can behold with your ears. But anyway, it's quality of communication. That's, to me, what luxury is as well. It's like sometimes it's crass what has been done to make something expensive, you know, but maybe not. You know, you sort of get the feeling that it's a competition. They're having a competition with someone. You haven't heard the other side of the story. You know, why has he paid that much for a whatever, and someone gives you some complicated description of what it is, some convoluted product, really. Because just on the other side of the road, arguably the more expensive side of the road, but only arguably so, there is Baron von Dunhausen III, who has done blah. So there's a hidden competition going on. Okay, a game's a game, fair enough. But for me, I like, with luxury, I'm thinking of the quality of the communication, and it's how it makes you feel. It's how it goes about doing what it does. I think a good example of that for anyone who's a petrol head is, for me, I really like about 2007 the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Roadster. I think it's a beautiful looking car, and it makes me want to engage it. I want a manual, even though I've driven some and their clutches are so heavy on them. I would genuinely find that problematic, but it's like, it's such a tactile car. It's like, I want to change, I want to touch the gear stick, you know, I just want to engage with the thing, because that to me, it's the package. And yes, the sat nav was lousy and it came from Volvo, in brackets or whatever, Ford, but if you want to be king of the road in that arena, you know, get a 9 and you don't have massive amounts of on-road talent and ability as a driver, it's, you know what I'm going to say, it's going to be a Porsche Carrera 4S, you know. If you want to go a bit faster on the road, you know, bring a little bit more skill, maybe you go for a 2-wheel drive Porsche Turbo or something. But I think there's a reason why the classic 911 Carrera 4S driver, is it a 997 or something, is a doctor. You know, it's like one of those things where it's a good, sensible decision. It's like, it's an everyday car, and it's a bit like the Subaru Impreza, but I couldn't live with it's not that they fall apart, but the hard plastics and I can't have it. I've only driven one, and to me, I just thought I love what these cars are, and they are amazing, but I don't like being in it. It's just the significance of what it can do and stuff, but I don't like being in that car. And I do like the look of them, and I, you know, as a car lover, I think they're great and all the rest of it. But then, you know, even with the 911, even with the Vantage, you're really saying, well, if you're really serious about it, get the later 4.7, bit more power. Get a coupe because a bit more body, stiffness, and the Autobox apparently wasn't particularly great on it. But it's not about having technically the best or most accurately or super efficient or whatever. It's about the whole feeling. I had a 5 Series E39 5 Series BM for a number of years, 20 years actually, and there were plenty of things that were faster, but I always used to think, yeah, but I'm sat in this. This is my home. I mean, they're a pretty spectacularly good car actually. If you don't know that, just Google it. But it was a tremendous car. So it's not just about the 0 to 60 or the levels of grip or even the balance, although I'm pretty sure with the Vantage, although a 911 might be grippier, I have a feeling that the Vantage is an easy car to drive quite quickly. They're not massively quick, but to me, is a piece of, I always think prestige is like sports luxury. That's my thing. And, it's the overall package. And it does irritate me sometimes, certain like flaws with the car. You think, I wish it had a bit more power, I wish it didn't do this, or I wish you could whatever. But when you add it all up, you just think, it doesn't matter, this is mine. There are cars, there are good cars, there are great cars, there are fantastic cars, and then there are mine. And they physically either are yours or you don't stand a chance, but they're still somehow they're yours. They love that saying, this is what I'm talking about, and it's that sort of thing. Judge me on how I would have it, When I have my ducks in a row, judge me then. And the truth of the matter is, when I've got things in the zone that I want them in, I couldn't give a damn what people say. My attention's not on other people's opinions at that point. I'm just engaged with the thing that's ticking my boxes for me. And I've said this before, it's like somebody puts some clothes on me and says, oh, you look fine in that. I think, okay, great, fine. And then if it's coming from the right person or whatever, that's a bit of reassurance or whatever, fine. But there are other times someone puts something on you and you're like, other people might be like, it looks amazing, and I'll be thinking, I feel like chimpanzee's tea party. I feel like I've been, this, I don't care what, it's like the moment I've got it how I'd have it, I don't mind, but how people judge that. But when I'm not quite, this isn't really how I would do it, I don't want to hear people's opinions, because it's kind of like, it's like rubbing it in. They normally will come out with something that it's like, well, that's the least of my worries. The thing I can't stand is blah, and they're like, but it's just like, it becomes inharmonious, But in the great Millwall Football Club and their fans, no one likes us, we don't care. And that's the thing, isn't it? when I had a period of time where I had what at the time was like a 10 grand, probably the equivalent of a 20 grand BMW, and I had a Sierra at the same time that I paid a couple of £100 for. And I had like a tandem garage, you put one in the garage and one outside. And so being married at the time, it's like which car was available, that was the one you hopped in, and rather than swapping them around, and sometimes I'd go a couple of weeks where the BM would just be in the garage because I couldn't be bothered to move the Sierra out of the way, it's a 3 Series, pull this 3 Series out, put the Sierra in or whatever. And it just used to make me laugh so much. I loved that Sierra. I loved it probably equally as much as I did the 3 Series, but I loved it even more once it wasn't my only option. As soon as it was amazing. When I jumped back in the 3 Series, I'd be like, oh, why didn't I drive this sooner? I haven't driven it for a couple of weeks, and I'd be really happy. And then eventually I'd find myself in the Sierra thinking, there's something more honest about this car. It was a Ghia, and it was a gold, not very shiny, but not as rusty as some of them actually. For some reason the gold ones didn't seem to rust as much. Maybe it's more to do with the owners. Maybe they're driven by all low mileage granddads with a garage, in their semi-detached suburban, whatever, I don't know. But anyway, when I had the choice, I didn't care. If I only had that, and I'm driving down the road thinking, when I go over a speed bump, the right-hand indicator pops out of the bumper and hangs on it, which is a true story. Never did, just to pop them in, but it'd be alright. And then you bash the car and it'd be like, bang, and it would come out again. A little bit. It's like having somebody just walk down the street just flicking you. Think it's a bit humiliating. It's like, it's not as important perhaps as it feels, but it's just a way of just goading. It's like being goaded. Anyway, but when I had the choice, it didn't bother me. But as it happens, I think it would make a lovely, particularly the estate version of, an XR 4x4 Ghia or something like that, Sierra, built from scratch, hand built from scratch with the some bored and stroked out 24 valve cos with V6 in there, just because it's an iteration of the engine, the 2.8 V6 that was in that 4x4, albeit a little bit different, a bit like saying a Sierra Cosworth engine is a transit van engine. Well, there's some truth to that. And what was it, the Porsche, the Lotus Esprit was a Bedford CF van engine, 2.3, and the everyone knows the Porsche 924 was a Volkswagen anyway. I was going to say it was an LT engine in that. But anyway, always struck me as a little bit of a nasty move that, was it a deliberate attempt to bankrupt Porsche, what Volkswagen did there? On the, and you look at the Scirocco, it's very similar to the 924 that they threw Porsche under. Anyway, and more understandable actually. But I did go in a 924 once in the back, a 924 turbo, and at the time I was like most people, silly car, not a proper Porsche, hairdresser's car, yap. And there was a friend of mine, a Greek guy called Stavros, true, and he had an Indian friend of his, a guy called Honey, also true. So me, Stavros and Honey, Honey had this 924, or he had a Porsche, and of course Stavros was like, my mate's got a Porsche. I'm like, normally it's very unlike me, because normally I'd just be like, oh, I don't care, it's a car, tell me, let's have some fun with it. What is it, where is he coming round, I want to have a look at the Porsche, what's he got? And I don't know why, but I did what most people seem to do, which really isn't me. Anyway, I apologise, but I got schooled on it anyway, because I said, oh, what's he got, a 924? Very uncharacteristic of me, I have to say, but anyway, I'm a bit more forgiving with myself when I do stupid things that I always do, because I think, well, that's all I can manage on that subject. But when I look and I think, I don't do that, I don't say that stuff. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? It's just not, that's not even what I think. So why did that come out of my mouth? Anyway, so that was, oh dear. So anyway, that's what it was. And I sort of made a pact with myself over the years that if I do something dumb, can it at least be part of my repertoire? Which sounds a bit weird, but it's like, if I'm capable of not behaving the way I behaved, then I find it harder to forgive myself, Anyway, and it becomes irritant, because my good points I'm proud of. So here's another, I missed an opportunity to not be a dickhead on that subject at that time. Anyway, the one time you get rinsed for it. But so yes, he did have a 924 turbo. I was like, okay. And then we went in it, and I sat in the back, very tight in the back. I'm holding on to these headrests and got my head in the middle. It was a quick car. I think they're about, these days with sales, I've got an X5 that's almost as quick these days, X5 diesel, but this was a 6.7, I think, seconds, about 135 or more miles here, but similar sort of thing to a Cosworth Sierra, funny enough, although it was out. Was it out before? Yeah, it was out before. It was a quick car. And yes, it had a Volkswagen engine in the front, but it still had a gearbox out the back and a turbocharger, and it was still engineered by Porsche, and mostly, well, completely. Maybe their budget changed later on, but anyway, I would still be quite happy. I have never driven one, so I don't know, but in theory, I even like the way they look, the turbos, those diamond spoke wheels and the vents, and this had checked seats, like checkered flag seats. It might have been brown and cream or something, typical early 80s, but it's a nice car. On the face of it, I wouldn't mind one in my garage, if I had a few, give it a try, see what I thought of it. But I love the 928. I'm not supposed to like that either, but anyway, it was a great car in terms of its performance in it, and it felt like it was really putting that power down. When he bit into each gear, it really had amazing traction, maybe because of me sitting in the back, but he bit into the gear and it bit into the tarmac. And I was like that, not like a nodding dog, holding on to these headrests and with my head going backwards forwards in the back of this thing, and Honey and Stavros in the front. Oh wow, the shape you grow up in is funny, isn't it? But it was a nice car. Stav had a 2-litre S, and of course it was, when you find out, he's got the Capri. Oh, what you got? An S. You got 3-litre. You don't want to ask, because it's like, you don't want to look like sort of putting him down or something. But he had the 2-litre, but I loved that gearbox, 2000E gearbox, external linkage gearbox, transit van gearbox. Only 4-speed, but I just loved the gear changes and the sound. You could hear the clinking of the linkages. Hopefully not too much, but lovely gearbox. But it was a nice car, especially for us young lads. It was a reasonably decent car. Most of us didn't have any money. What did I have at the time? If I had anything, probably had Mark 1 or Mark 2 Escort van. the Mark 1 I lived in. The Mark 2, I had you could say a Mexico engine, but it was anyway, 1600 Sport engine, 1600 GT engine, whatever, but it was that 1.6 with the twin choke and the 4 branch. And an 1100 back axle, so the top speed wasn't anything to write home about, but it could jump across the set of lights to 30. The trick was always, you'd always surprise people, especially as it was very rusty and it had lowering blocks on the back, so it looked like it was full of cement or something, this thing, because it was down at the back. Never had the money to do the lowering springs. So you get this old rusted up van sitting like it's fully laden. And there weren't many things that could get a full car length in front at a set of lights. So if you had 2 lanes going down into one, especially the Porsches, funny enough, because they were quite high geared, so geared for the motorways and stuff. So this thing could even get its nose in front, literally across the set of lights, to the other side of the road. Especially as they weren't expecting it, and then the trick was just to get in front and stick it in fourth and just sit at 30. Now, of course, whoever you've just beaten is going to come herring past, for some reason shaking things out the window at you and stuff. But you'd never know. That was all your car could do. It could get to 30 quicker than most things, or 20 or whatever. Then just leaving wondering, what the hell was that? And they were lovely as well, because they didn't have a lot of grip, but although you'd say they weren't well balanced, they kind of were, because you could really drift them quite easily, especially on the kind of wheels and tyres that we'd have on. And it would all be happening at a low speed, so yeah, you could have fun with them. That's what's great. And that, although that I would consider it a luxury, but it isn't a luxurious car, of course. But you've got the quality of the communication. It's like, it was a me-sized car. I could take care of that car. I could look after it as a driver, as an owner, as a mechanic. Financially, no, even though they were cheap as chips. The wonderful old days when you go down to some breaker's yard you could never find the place. Every time you went there, you went a different way, but you'd find these things and you'd have to literally climb up the side of 3 or 4 cars that were like rocking, and to look and see, has it still got someone's had the 4 branch for that. What about the 6 o'clock dash? Someone's had that as well. I'll just take the ashtray then now. My one's broken. And you go up to the guy and he's like, what you got, mate? Pound. Cheers. And you'd have to walk past the nasty looking German Shepherd. It's like, those were the days. Oh, the health and safety of that. Those cars would always be covered in slime, really, like almost like algae. So as well as the fact that, the car you were standing on, so you're standing on the wing of some Morris Marina or something, and then the 2 cars on top, not just stacked up, they seem to be coming out this way a little bit. So you've got to keep your foot on this top of this slippery wing as you kind of, now you think, where am I going to put my other foot? I'll get on the door handle of this Vauxhall Viva. And then you come up and you're like, someone's already had the twin choke off of this one, and I was like, how am I going to get down? And it would be sort of rocking a little bit, and then you'd hear the sound of a forklift truck somewhere with, a car on it. They'd put the car through the windows, it's holding it up by the inside of the roof, and got to have eyes in the back of your head and clocking who else is there, and if you do find what you're looking for, you don't want to make it look too valuable. So then you're like, Well, you got just this, and inside you like, just this exhaust thing here. Don't even call it a 4-branch. And you look at you like, you think I'm born yesterday. You think I don't know what that is and what, the significance of that. It's like, and you think, 20 quid, please, 20 quid, 20 quid. He's like, 35 quid, mate, to you. And you get the idea of putting it back or not buying it or not having it on. You just like, there goes the whole of my dole check. There you go. It's like 30 quid, 35 quid, mate. And you still get there and you think, get out of there, and you're like, yes, my car is now a GT. I've got the twin choke, I've got the 4-branch, somehow I've got to plug it in. My exhaust sat inside the bore of that 4-branch, and I had this almost like a wide metal watch strap with a, it's like a clamp, and you just used to pull out of that, and oh my word, was it loud. Flames as well coming up from underneath the car, like a DTM car. Just so loud when that exhaust pulled out. And just so funny to not have the money to just take it to a mate, because I knew plenty of people in the trade, and just say, can you fabricate something to take that exhaust down? Because I know what they would answer. They would say, why don't you just have a 2-inch exhaust all the way back? Well, I would love that, but that's 150 quid and a trip to Janspeed, or Ripspeed, sorry, up in Edmonton. And just never really did it properly. Most of my cars ended up in the scrapyard if they didn't come out of there in the first place, and sometimes both. But anyway, my long-winded point is for me, luxury isn't about money. Let's spend more money than we need to on making a door handle, and then it's a luxurious one. Not necessarily at all. That's, if I'm looking at something that's all I'm looking at thinking is expensive, then it's like, those Virtue phones, I'm disappointed that I couldn't live with the Android operating system. But the Virtue phones, some of them are not the top of the range ones. I like the sort of intro ones. They're beautiful. They look lovely. You just want to use them. You want to need them. They've got the leather on the back, and they're just so beautifully made. But I don't think of the cost. It's one of those things where you think, well, I can either afford it or not. But you look and you think, I hope I need this, because I certainly want it, And so to me, it's like, sometimes you want to express yourself, on like, my P5 Bowers & Wilkins headphones they're in ivory, coloured white. They're magnificent. The P7's apparently a slightly better sound. I think probably right. I could just about tell that, it was right. Aficionados would definitely be able to tell, but they were just gorgeous, and it was like just the soft leather, the way they felt when they were on, and the sound that they actually had were mine. It wasn't like a set of beats where the bass is exaggerated, but it's cool, certainly on some tracks. They were just a beautiful sound, and what I've got now, a PX, which is, I suppose, equivalent of a P7, but wireless and noise cancelling. I always wanted noise cancelling headphones. They don't sound very good. They actually don't sound very good. I trust that they probably are doing a pretty decent job, but it doesn't sound like it to me. But maybe that's because they're not wired, so the quality that's going into them isn't that's so great. So maybe I should just plug them in at some point to something and see how they sound. Probably sound a whole lot better. But that's, to me, is luxury, is when is preferably when it's got the whole package. If something sounds better, that's not the point. If I like the sound of them and they feel nice and they look nice and they just overall just make me feel like I've got something worthy, and they just make you want to interact with it. They make you want to touch them, use them, you know. And to me, that's what luxury is. It's about that sort of thing. One of these days, hopefully sooner rather than later, I'll get a Haston's bed, because you can spend a whole load of money on all kinds of different beds, but it's never bothered me. I've got a pretty decent Tempera one, but I'm happy with that. But I've never, like the Hypnos ones, I'm like, and they seem to be celebrating the cost of them. It's like, look how expensive these are. It's like, yeah, that's about, if that's all you've got to say about them is that they're expensive. Well, not even, to me, it's not reassuringly so, because reassuringly expensive is when you don't talk about the price, because that's not the headline. That's not the selling point. That's not the headline. The headline is, feel the quality of this. Listen to these speakers. Stroke that leather. You know, it's you, and you think that moment when you do something, you engage with something, you're like, oh no. It's like, this feels beautiful. I have a feeling that I need it. I certainly want it. And you think, this ain't going to be cheap. How the hell am I going to do this? You're already selling it to yourself, right? And you still say, all right, yeah, it does feel a lot nicer than the last one. I've got to be honest with you. How much is this one? He tells you, like, because at that point you sort of think, I'm not going to get away with not doing this. And I'm not just, the money's never kicking around. And but then you start to get used to it, and it sort of seeps in. And a lot of the time you end up, or I've ended up having it and thinking, that's amazing how that works. When something has that much value to you, you seem to find a way of getting it. And of course there's going to be exceptions, and there'll be people who could probably pull me up for this, and I probably would have said the same thing, but that's been my observation of things, not just around me, but around others. You might not get everything you want. If you try sometime, you just might find you get what you need. Mr. Jagger. But that, as I say, that to me is luxury, when something engages with you, and you know, sometimes you don't have to pay a lot for it, which is quite remarkable when that happens. You just think, how can I have managed to pull this in? This is fantastic, you know. But it's the engagement. I can't think of any other way of saying it. It just, I think of that moment in Avatar where you plug in to the fly-in thing. And there's no two ways about it. That visually, that representation is about engagement. It's like, we are one. You know, man and machine in perfect harmony. You know, we are one. On that subject at that time, you know. And it can help if you are, like, if I'm really into cars, so it's really important to me that I end up with the one. Or if I'm going to have a few, maybe a few, but I certainly don't have that at the moment. But because it's like, there's you know, this car, there's that car, there's those, there's these, there's that. And it's like, yeah, but then there's mine. And you're like, this does it for me. This gives me the connection that I'm looking for. And then you just get on with enjoying it and having, like I say, making the memories. You just, before you know it, there's a truckload of experiences you've had with that thing, and it's just raised it onto an even higher level. And you sort of know that that's going to happen with some things where you think, I ain't going to ever be getting rid of you, am I? You know, and maybe you do end up, and that would be a surprise. But you know, you get that moment where you think, buy a watch, done. You know, get the car, done. When you get those and you tick them off, it's handled. Now all I'm doing is existing in coexistence with it, you know. To me, that's a luxury as well. It's like, I won't be needing, you know, I can take myself off the, you know, it's almost like when you get to the point where you could say, listen, you know, you've been car hunting or whatever, and you get to the point where you've got your car and you're like, it's the apple of my eye, and then you think, unsubscribe, unsubscribe, unsubscribe from all these different dealers, all these different cars you were looking at, and the saved ones you looked on Auto Trader. You know, don't you just save them? Well, half of them are sold now anyway. But that point where it's handled, you've handled it. You've ticked the box, and you've done it with, knocked it out of the park, and it continues to. It can. It's a bit like, bless him, Harry Kane's penalty. It's still on its way to Mars now. You know what I mean? So it's like, I've knocked this one out of the park, and it's still going. It's like 14 years later, it's still heading out of the park. You know, it's gone past Arcturus now. No signs of slowing down. That thing is still hitting big. You know, and that's how I ended up with that car for 20 years, I suppose. It's really hard to find something that was going to replace that. It was like, you know, the family dog has died. Do we get a puppy in the morning, or are we ever going to get a dog again? Or what is that balance? And then you think, okay, there are lots of dogs. It's got to be our dog. Where the hell is our dog now? And what does it look like? What's it going to be? We're different now. And we're, you know, but when you get it, it's a bit like the old thing, it will find you, you know. It's such an amazing feeling. It is a luxury when that happens. It's handled, but it doesn't mean it's handled and now, you know, there's no life in it. It's like, no, it remains alive. That to me is a definition of handled. It remains alive. That moment, that decision, that handling, somehow it's the gift that keeps on giving. It was such a good decision. It continues to be a good decision to this day. And maybe I've gotten rid of that car now, but there's nothing about the period of having that car that ever turned out to be not right. You know, so to me, that's luxury. That's luxury. Yes, it tends to look a certain way, it tends to be aesthetically pleasing, it tends to be built with some sort of robustness, not always, but hopefully, you know, it does what it's meant to do in a incredibly generous way, let's say. It's not necessarily faster, it's not necessarily smarter, but overall it has a compatibility that I couldn't have it any other way, you know, that sort of thing. And yeah, I'd much rather have this conversation two-way, you know, with someone, with people. But there we go, there's some more musings. I'm starting to think that I was on the tipping point. Am I going to edit all of this stuff? I'm thinking that I'm going to end up throwing these up on YouTube and letting you just suffer through it and see what you get out of it. But yeah, that coffee definitely has caffeine in it. Bit too bright for me, not the kind of thing I'm looking for. I kind of knew that, but I feel like I kind of know it on another level now. You know, really made a point of saying, all right, don't get into those types of coffees wherever you have the choice because you won't enjoy them. I kind of knew that anyway, but double underlined, but this was bought for me. I might not even make another one of these ones, but the other one was nice. So anyway, if you, what was I going to say? Yeah, if you found that interesting in any way, it would be really nice to hear what you have to say. If you've got any comments, stick them down below. My final point really, I suppose, is that I'm expecting a phone call as well, so I need to get on to that. But the final point is that yeah, my reviews are about that. They're about luxury, really, but not as a pretension, you know, not a self-publicizing, self-aggrandizing, you know, let me make it look like this is my lifestyle, not just too cliche. Is it pastiche? You know, like, here's a very quick little rant. This is what I can't stand when, you know, you get these home tours and it's like, let's just say for a minute, make out that this is pristine, right? So I come in here and say, this is how I would do it. I'd be like, right, so over here I have a 1.5 bowl sink there with a filtered water tap and a blah, and, you know, I'd explain what I have. But instead you get this thing of like, okay, so here you've got your blah oven, and here you've got your blah fridge, and here you've got your marbled floor, and then you have your, and I just want to punch people when they're saying that, because what it's like, that to me the whole thing of luxury is freedom, and what they're saying is, you know, when you say you've got your, like, it's like you have to have one of those. That's what you've got to have. It's like, this is a £10.5 million house, and you're telling me that this is what I have to have as a cooker. I don't care if it's what it is. I don't care if it was £1, £100,000, if it was big, bad, bold, whatever it was. Don't be telling me, you know, it's like tell me what is there. Don't, you know, fawn, and don't, just don't be pretentious about it. You know, stick to the English language. The same as saying when the gets taken out as well. Like, you know, you say, well, the guy talking about Bentley, let's say, well, here at Bentley, you know, when the thing is with Bentayga. No, not the thing is with Bentayga. The thing is with the Bentayga. Stop it. You know? It's like, I'm not naughty because I haven't bought one. Do you see what I mean? The whole point is about, one of the things about luxury is choice, expression, is the freedom. You know, all I needed was a car, but guess what? I've attained a state where I am able to express myself with car in a way that I love. So it's like, okay, so here you've got your 24-inch. They're not mine. Well, it comes with 24-inch. All right, maybe they'll come off. Maybe I'll be like, oh, I want 23-inch, or I want 25-inch, or I want pram wheels. I don't know. But don't be telling me this little subtle, snide little comment that I am in some way, you know, it's like making me a prisoner of the thing. You come into the home and it's like, this isn't my home, it's everybody else. It's what I've been told I've got to have. Okay, you've got your marble floor like you're supposed to have, and you've got your air conditioning and your home control system like the guy's completely out of communication with it because it's not his. You've said the word your, but it's implied that it's like ubiquitous. This is what you have to have. This is what they have. I don't want what they have. I don't want what they have. I want what I have. And that doesn't mean to say it has to be different to what they have, right? How many of those were sold? That's mine. That's not Dave's one, but it happens to be mine because I bought one same as it. That's not the one that, you know, the local exclusive magazine said you have to have in your, you know, Homes and Gardens home. Stop it. You know? It's like you see these people sitting on the car as it takes them down the road, and they are so out of communication with it. That's not luxury. They're not getting a luxurious experience at that point. This is a rant, isn't it? They're not getting a luxurious experience at that point. Okay? Because they're not in communication with it. Luxury is communication. It's quality of communication. When you are taking down the road, you're sitting on a car, you don't know this thing. All you know is that it has connotations to everybody else. So I've got to drive it. I'm trying to intimidate the other guy, or I'm trying to fit in, or I'm trying to do some other spurious thing. Relax. You've just bought an £80,000 car, and I've noticed you can't afford it. This is good news. Celebrate it. How do you celebrate it? Go and find something that you need and that you want and that you yourself have a feeling of connectivity with. Right? To me, that's what a consultant does. He puts you in something that works for you. Right? In fact, he doesn't even do that. He proposes the things that would work for you and has you sift through them. So he's filtered them down. So I'm not going to show you the da. But what I will show you is this, that, and the other, because based upon looking you over and listening to you and talking to you, I reckon what you're going to end up wanting really. I think you should probably get a Lexus, and but I would go for the panoramic roof because it just gives you that option of it's a bit more light. It feels a bit, you know, but if it's too sunny, you can close it. Oh no, I like the sun. Well, then you can let the sun in. But the person now is interacting with what they have. They're not just this caged, and they're 2.5 ton weapons that they are sitting on as it sort of makes its way down the road. You need to be in communication with it for a safety point of view to begin with. Maybe that's stretching the point, but most of all, you know, it's like when I've seen people who are truly loaded, very often you wouldn't notice it. You know, do they have the cliched pedigree dog? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Quite often I saw a kid once hopped over the road over in Hampstead Heath. You know, pretty expensive properties around there. He came over with his mum and his sister, and he was wearing Superman pajamas which had holes in them, right? Those weren't Superman pajamas. That was his Superman outfit, you know, and he was clambering over the you know, the swings and the whatever. And I remember seeing this couple coming over, walking in slow motion, and their little replica, but you know, 3-year-old ballerina, you know, girl was sat on the matching rug to the matching pram, which had the matching bag, and she wasn't allowed off that thing, and he was in a page boy suit, and he wasn't allowed to do anything either, and they just looked strangled. They looked like chimpanzees' teapot. They'd been dressed up as an accessory. The children were like an accessory. It made me feel quite sick, to be honest with you. To be completely honest with you, it made me feel pretty sick. The saving grace, if you like, was the fact that I clocked the whole picture here. These guys are driven over to this point for this lifestyle moment, and it was like they were like a badly drawn replica of what they thought those people were like. And it was uncomfortable to watch, to be honest with you. And I understand as a dad, you know, you sort of think, look, I've just bought you those jeans, please don't take them over the park. Or that's what the jeans were for. You know, so do what you want with them, you know what I mean? But, you know, let's say come home, change out every mum and every dad. Kids come home, can you just change out of your school uniform and then hang it up where you can find it in the morning? Do that, and then I don't care if you're hanging upside down eating sweets and you're on TikTok. It would be nice if you did something other than that, but hey, you're a kid, you know? you get just the right communication, and next thing you know, you're off until dusk, climbing trees or doing whatever. Yeah, they still do. So, but yeah, the you know, there are people, you know, there are people who are just being what they are, and that's wonderful to see. That's what I love to watch, is people being what they are, not frightened people pretending there's something else in order to aggrandize themselves over you, make you feel bad. You know, if I have a race with a guy in a car, it's like, it's because I like that stuff. And all right, I might be like, if he beats me, I'll be like, damn, I wanted to, you know, we're talking about across the lights or whatever. I wanted to win, or I wish my car did have a bit more power. Even if I didn't win that, it'd be nice if it had a bit more power, or something along those lines, sort of thing. But I'm not trying to make the guy feel bad about, you know, to me it's more of a celebration. Guess what we can do? Guess, you know, and I think it's funny when you got something, some old shed you're driving, and there's a Ferrari next to you, think, you know what, poor guy, I'm pretty sure he's not going to take off, but I am. I'm gonna go hell for leather, and I'm just gonna find it really fun. I'm gonna race this Ferrari in my Fiat Punto or whatever, you know. But, you know, to me, it's like, if you've got yourself into a position where you can afford to express yourself beyond the basic needs of, like, here's food on the plate, you know, here's the 3 bedrooms and a little garden that we need. It's like, well, this isn't just 3 bedrooms and a garden. This is a particularly nice house. It's in a really lovely spot. It's quite a big garden as it happens. It's like, wonderful. Nice one, brilliant. But the kind of person who then tries to make the next door neighbour, whose garden's only half of it, feel like lesser. I mean, it's just, well, the thing is, you're going to make yourself feel bad, you're going to make that person feel bad, or you're going to fail. Even worse, you're going to fail to make him feel bad. Now you've got blood on your hands and he ain't even dead, you know what I mean? It's like, you didn't kill him, he's still breathing, but you did still do it, you know? And not only that, you've now just gone and made your neighbourhood more miserable. You're living there, it's your neighbour. Make him feel good about himself, he's your bloody neighbour. You know, it's like, you've got the missus, you've got the kids, you got your mates at work, you got the guy at the end of your garden. Don't make him hate you. Don't make him hate himself. You know? This is your environment. This is your bubble. The sort of person that needs to make others feel worse it's probably been so long that they've been unhappy for, they probably don't even realise it. That's probably why they're doing it. So to me, it's about expressing yourself, and you know, it's a sharing thing. I saw Nick Mason once driving an F40. In fact, he wasn't driving it, he was stuck in traffic. It was amazing. It was in Southall. It was gridlocked on a Sunday. I was living in Southall. I wasn't happy about it. And I'm walking down the street, and because I didn't choose to be there, and there's certain things about it. It's quite nice with the canal going down the Grand Union and various other things. There's a Sugar Puffs factory nearby, and everything smelled of Sugar Puffs. That would have been a dream as a kid, but 5 minutes into that experience and you're cooked, you know. Pardon the pun or whatever, but there's a few bits and pieces around there quite interesting. There was the Three Bridge, you got a train line, canal and road, and it's sort of Brentford territory, isn't it now, for those of you who like your Premier League. But anyway, at the time I wasn't happy about it. I ended up moving from there to Belgravia, go figure. I was walking down the street, and I actually felt the ground sort of vibrating, and I'm looking, and immediately again as a petrol, I'm looking, I'm thinking, oh, where is that, you know, and what is it? And there's like car, space, car, and so I'm kind of looking across the roof lines, and I stop and I look down, and there's an F40, you know, coming up to the bleeding wheel arches of everything around it, stuck in traffic, going just as nowhere as everybody else. And weirdly enough, I'd seen, maybe that day or the week before, used to love looking at all the, you know, to get the big, not the tabloids, the big, you know, like the Sunday Times or the Mail on Sunday or something like that, and it'd be this thick with magazines and this, that. I used to love going through those, and never really used to read the paper, look at the football stuff, and that was about it. But I'd actually seen him being interviewed, and he was talking about that car. It's so funny. So I think it was a week or maybe a couple of weeks before. But so that's how I knew it was him. And there was this magnificent moment. I'm looking, and it's like suspended animation. I'm like, WTF, you know? There's Nick Mason in an F40 in Southall High Street on a Sunday. Does he know nothing? I mean, anyway, maybe his mum lived nearby or something, I don't know, but Southall on a Sunday is traffic, let me put it that way. And they got different things on their mind. There's sort of, I know from my days in New Cross, you go to Peckham, Deptford, all around there, I've seen guys midnight, you know, there's a traffic jam, what's that all about? And you come down, there's two cars nose to nose, and you think, oh no, anything could be happening there. And there's two sort of African dudes in full African regalia. They're having a conversation, it's like two brothers haven't seen each other for a few minutes, weeks, years, or whatever. They're doing the whole Coming to America Eddie Murphy thing, you know, in the middle of the road. They've just parked up, they're having a chat. And it's causing everyone to sort of like, sorry to disturb you, but we're just making our way through the night as well. You know, they have different priorities. To me, that is just, if I was in a hurry, I might be a bit fed up, but this is just endearing. Something like that, I just, you know, that was just something nice and different, you know. But anyhow, it was amazing how many different ways there were to go home, actually, across the river, down into there. But back then, but anyway, so there's Nick Mason, and it was instant. I knew how I looked and what was written all over my face at exactly the same time as he was giving back the same look on his face, which was, what the are you doing here? You know, we both sort of done this, neither of us were in much motion, but we sort of stopped more than we were already stopped. And although I was on foot, but it's just a wonderful moment. He's just think, you know, I am not gonna, if he was in reach, I'd give it like a high five or whatever. I am not gonna go. I'm not the sort of person to go for an autograph anyway. What am I gonna do with it now? I've got to put it somewhere, you know. But the thing is that it was just such a lovely connection at that moment. We were just absolutely on the same page at that moment, and to me, all right, had it have not have been such a unusual set of circumstances, maybe he would have been looking, thinking, oh, does he recognise who I am? Is he gonna whatever? But I mean, I had a guy with a Ferrari Dino. I had some photos of it. I put them up. I don't think they're up on YouTube, but I've put them maybe on Instagram or somewhere. Beautiful Dino, and it was pristine, and it was literally out of restoration that day. The guy had been told to put 500 miles on it, and there it was. And they are tiny as well, by the way. I knew they were small, but when you saw it, it felt like I was going to tread on it. But oh, what a car. Everything had been done. The interior was just gorgeous. The engine was beautiful. The colour was like weird. It's like dark greeny, turquoisey, bluey, you'd sort of say petrol blue or something. Anyway, but it was a solid colour, not a metallic colour, but it was beautiful. And the paint just looked so creamy on that car. And I didn't know. It turns out he wasn't the owner, but I didn't know that. But I went up to him and I said, mate, I said, I'm really sorry, but can I take some pictures of your car? And he said, yeah, go ahead. It had nothing on it. He was putting petrol in it. And so I took these pictures, but they weren't great pictures because I was kind of, to get a good picture, you've really got to be there, pay attention, take a look at what's there and get it framed. And not that I'm a photographer, but I found that works, Otherwise it's a snapshot, but it's like, you've got to represent what you're seeing in that photo. Otherwise, so it's no good just sort of saying, well, I pointed my camera at it and clicked, and it's like, well, how do you know the camera saw what you saw? Did you check? No, I didn't. Okay, so do that. Stop imagining that there are things there that aren't there. Just take a look at what do you see. This happens instantly, but you just have to, if you're a little bit concerned, then you're not really in the moment, are you? So you've got to be, for that split second, you'll be like, right, here I am, bang, gotcha. And I'll normally take a couple of pictures before I get to that point, so because, maybe it's from kids, it's like, he was picking his nose, she was yawning. It's like, just, so normally if we're taking a group shot, I'll be like, click, click, click. People who are assembling themselves, already taken 5 photos. No one knows. Like, all right, here we go. Then everybody get in together, and I've already taken 3. And then I'm like, okay, all right, say cheese or whatever. I'll take a few. It's like, okay, good, thanks. And then I'll take another 1 or 2. We'll take a look and see what came out of that lot, So anyway, he got talking to me, and turns out he was, I can't remember if he was delivering it or not. I think he was delivering it, but it involved a little bit of, make sure you've done 500 miles by the time you arrive at mine, sort of thing. I think it was some sort of arrangement like that. So maybe it's a bit of snagging or something. And so I'm going to have to end this off because this is a call I've got to take. But anyway, the thing is that, yeah, right, it turns out he wasn't the owner. But it rang off before I got there to ring it off, actually. I could have taken it on here as well, but anyway, I'm going to finish this off. Here being watch. So anyway, it was the fact that yes, he wasn't the owner, but he's still, like, I wouldn't say he engaged, because he was in, he's doing his thing and I was doing mine. But to allow the identity, the persona of another person on that subject into, not even into your space, but sort of like, say, right, what's he doing? He's delivering a car, a pretty expensive car that's absolutely pristine, but he's actually not even doing that. What is he doing? He's filling it up. He's putting some petrol in. What am I doing? Drawing over a car. And he's like, well, he knows what that means. He's just been involved in putting that thing together. And I've been involved in car restoration. I have those sort of skills and certainly have those interests. But it's like letting somebody exist, letting somebody be what they are. I'm not saying you should, if someone's being rude, or whatever, someone's causing you distaste or discomfort or whatever, obviously there's always exceptions to any sort of relatively hard and fast rule, but generally speaking, it's like, let the person be, rather than like, you're not me and that's what's wrong with you and there's nothing you can do about it and I'm going to rub it in, but I want to rub it in automatically. I'll use my car to do that. I'm not paying you any attention, but my car puts its middle finger up at you, whoever you are. I want a car that does that. I don't want to sell a car to a person that wants to do that. I don't want to know that person. I don't want to be around them. I don't want to show them that I'm ignoring them. I want them to not even notice. I want them to not even notice that I exist. unless obviously I need them to notice. But do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to prove a point to someone like that, because as far as I'm concerned, the person's dead in their head. They're on some other, they've got some other fish to fry, and I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. You know, I just, so to me, it's more about, luxury isn't about making the other guy feel bad, you know? That will get your head lopped off in medieval times. It's about expressing yourself on that subject. And what do you know? Clean drinking water that we don't have to go to the bottom of the garden for. Luxury. There's a functionality usually, maybe even quite majorly so, and quite often they try to sell its functionality as being better or higher or stronger or faster than the functionality you'd normally expect to find. But it doesn't need to be. It depends what it is, but it generally doesn't need to be. In terms of cars, it doesn't need to be the fastest. It needs to be up there in a zone that you find pleasing and useful. You know, GT cars, and will get you across a continent in style and fun, enjoyment, comfort, safety, security, and you don't have to pay attention if you don't want to, but you probably will because you'll want to, you know? That sort of thing. It's like those cars where you think, I can knock it into auto and just one finger my way down the motorway, or even around the twisty bits, or I can kind of see that everyone in the car's asleep. Maybe I can have some fun a little bit, you know, flick it over into sport and get into closer communication, you know, if I want to, and it will do that as well. And so that, to me, you'd say, well, that's something sporting about that. Well, it will need to have a certain degree of that, yeah, and it will need to have a certain degree of comfort as well. So usually from an engineering point of view, trying to mash as many of those important points together is going to involve paying attention a little bit more, probably more expensive or more quality materials, or more thought has gone into the design or something along those lines. But you can't necessarily compete with a mass-produced giant like Ford. That's why people say, oh, Bentayga is like a Q7. Well, how much better do you think the chassis on the Bentayga would be if it was done by Bentley? And let's face it, there wouldn't be a Bentayga if it was done by Bentley. You know, how many new models did they come out with? You know? So, you know, I would imagine the chassis is more rigid in terms of the rigidity versus weight of that Bentayga Q7 chassis is probably in a much, actually more luxurious, but much more efficient by the laws of physics level than it would have been if Bentley were independent and tried to cobble that thing together themselves. So they're starting probably with some really, you know, decent high-end mass production parameters, and then everywhere possible, and they need to, because they want to justify it, you know, they're then going to say, well, because it's a bit, we can afford to go the extra mile here, and here, and we better head over here, and we better make sure you can see that, recognize that, here and here. And then you think, okay, are you now just throwing $1 at it for the sake of it, or are you actually, am I getting something better and necessarily better, and so on. So that to me is luxury, is being able to take your time, think it over properly, and follow through I suppose at whatever cost, it's like cost benefits sort of thing, is like that you get the law of diminishing returns. It's like, for the amount of extra work we'll have to put in, no one's going to notice. So it's not cutting a corner. And then you might think, well, we're going to do it anyway because I just want to know that it's been done right. All right, fair enough. But other things, you think we might as well use the washer bottle from the Q7, to be honest with you. You're not going to see it. They've sold more of those than we're going to sell of ours if we design one. It's been done. Fine. You could have a quirk if it's got a screw top on it with a aluminium lid or something, but do you have to? Don't know. So anyway, and there's always expression, because you'd always get that bit where you think, I don't know if what they've decided to do on that subject is better or not, but it is what they would do. So like Pagani or whatever, that to me is luxury. Yes, it's a hypercar, but it is luxury. The fact that they've been able to express themselves in that way and come through and live to tell the tale, because you're going to have to get paid for doing it. So there it is. It's quality of communication, and I've put it in car analogies, but you can probably bring some others. I really have to go. Thank you for taking the time and the trouble to stick with me on this. What's left of the coffee is cold. I'll probably put some hot just to finish it off, but it's not the one really for me. It's all right, but I'm not bothered about having another one of those. The other one that was in the pack, pretty good. All right, cheers guys. Like, comment, subscribe, share. There's an hour and a half video from someone you've never heard of before, but you've got to see it. Well, good for you if you think that would enhance the day of a friend or someone you know. Thank you very much for doing it, and a nice one. I'd be interested to hear from them as well. So when they come on, let me know how you found this, as in, how did you come across this feed? All right, cheers guys, take care, bye.